Hi everybody, welcome to Dandelion Cottage and Marvelous Monday. I'm Leslie Watkins, and today I'm going to finish up the rose box that I started last time. So let me show you what I've done. Here's the box. I'll get you straightened out a little bit here. Here we go. So in the last video you saw me make the lid for the box, and I needed to get some more paper for the bottom, so I've done that. This is Mossy Meadow, and the image is part of this piece of hand-painted paper that I made to prepare for this box. And this is an explosion box. It opens up like this, so you can put whatever you like on the inside. It would hold 2 tiers of Ferrero Rochers, or any other kind of tall item that you might want to put in here. It's 4 by 4 by 4, and because it has these gussets on the corners, if you want to put smaller items in there, they wouldn't roll away and out of the box. And so there it is. And then on the inside of the lid, I also put another piece of the hand-painted watercolor paper. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the surprise, the 3D rose, on the inside of the box here. And maybe we'll add some metallic pearls or something to the lid. We'll see if I want to do that or not. So as I said, this measures on the inside. The inner mat is actually 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. So we want to keep it kind of small and contained. But I also want the rose to have some depth. I want it to come up. I want it to be really 3D. So in order to do that, I'm going to build a base, which is going to be a secret box on the inside. And then what I'm going to do is build the rose petal by petal on top of that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get my paints out again. So I'm just going to put this piece of plexiglass on my surface here. And here are my watercolors. I've got my brush. And I've got a large piece of watercolor paper. And I'm just going to give that a little bit of a spritz off camera. Okay. Got a little bit more. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to repeat the colors that I used to paint this, but I'm going to do them in a couple of bands across the page. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm just going to mix up some of this peachy color. Just pull that right across the width of the page. And I'm going to let that get a little bit darker on one side. Okay, and I'll do that again. And one more time. Just give that a nice soft edge. Now what I want to do is I want to take a cooler tone, so I'm just going to take a little bit of this blue And I'm mixing it with a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to keep this very light. And you may not even be able to see that. I guess you can see that okay. So there we go. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do right now. Actually, I'm going to put one more stroke. Just going to make that a little bit darker on this bottom one so I can vary the tones a little bit. There we go. Bring that from side to side because I don't want to waste any of this good paper. There, okay. So I'm going to put this aside to dry while we work on some of the other elements to the box. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, I'm just going to move this water out of the way so we don't have an accident. I have 2 squares of saffron cut out, and these are going to be for the inner box. So I've got a top and a bottom, and they both measure 6 by 6, and I've scored each of them on all 4 sides at 1 inch and 2 inches. But there's a slight difference, and that is that if you line them up, you can see that one is just a tiny bit smaller than the other, and that's the bottom. So I cut the bottom square slightly less than 6 inches, and that's so that the top is a little bit bigger so it fits better. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to burnish these score lines. And this is a very tiny box. This is only going to measure about 2 inches by 2 inches and 1 inch deep. So you might be able to fit a small piece of jewelry in there, maybe a very fine necklace or a ring, maybe some little squares of chocolate. Okay, so there's our scoring done. And now I'm just going to take my snips, and because these are squares, I'm just going to pinwheel around. So starting in the lower right corner, I'm just going to snip up. I'll bring you in a little bit closer. And then trim this piece off and this, so you get this kind of stepped corner. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to angle cut this flap, this tab, and this flap as well. Okay, and now I'm going to just turn it to the next corner and do exactly the same thing all around. So while I'm doing this, I want to tell you about what's coming up this month in October. Here's my website. if you go to dandelioncottagedesign.com, you can subscribe to my newsletter Notes, and I will send you all of the monthly class listings that are coming up this month. There's still a couple more days left to register, so there's still time. And I've got a lot of really fun stuff going on. So at the end of the month, we're going to be having the first annual stamp camp and bingo. And that's going to include loads and loads of prizes. We're going to be making Christmas cards, holiday cards. Maybe I'll even get a couple of boxes and tags and some other fun projects. And you'll have a chance to win prizes. There'll be a raffle. So a lot going on with that. Also this month there's going to be a Halloween Zoom where we make special little treat boxes in time for Halloween. And I'll have more information on that a little bit later this month, because I'm going to hopefully be presenting that in conjunction with one of the art organizations here near where I live. There's also going to be our card class, and this month I'm introducing something brand new that I'm really excited about, and this is my watercolor card club. And I'm going to be introducing a new design that I will show you how to paint each month. So for instance, for this month we're going to start with autumn leaves, and then in December it's going to be holly. And you can subscribe to the club for 6 months at a discounted rate. And each month you will get a little packet of note cards and envelopes and mats and maybe some embellishments from time to time. But there will also be an instructional video that shows you how to paint each of the different subjects, and there will be a live Zoom for question and answer and critique. So you don't want to miss that. That's going to be fully explained in the edition of Notes. So make sure you subscribe. And I think I covered everything that's coming up this month. And then there's going to be a lot more going on next month as well. Okay, so here are our two little boxes, or actually our top and bottom of the same box. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some glue on the 4 tabs, like so. I'm just going to tuck that in, and I'm just going to make sure, look to make sure that my corners line up nicely. And I'm just holding it for a moment to let that glue set enough so that it holds. There we go. And then I can take my bone folder and give that a nice press and a rub and help move that glue around so it's nice and even. There we go. Now I'm just going to put some glue on the flaps. And this is the same way that we made the lid for the main box, and this is called reinforcing. So when we double up the sides like this, it helps to make it much stronger. And also, if you look closely on the inside, you'll see that there are the little tabs folded in. When you use this method, you cover that up, so it just has a much neater look. Okay, so I'm just going to go around a couple of times. Just like so. Now I also, this month I have a host code, so if you're interested in purchasing any of the items that I'm using today, or if you want to start getting ready for Christmas and pick up a few papers or stamp sets, you can use this this October host code, and that will enter you into a drawing for an added embellishment if you spend over $50. So any order of $50 or more, and you will have a chance to get an additional embellishment. Okay, there we go. And now for this one, I'm going to do just the same. Also in October, we're going to have part 2 of the beautiful watercolor note cards, where I show you how to make that box that, that will hold 8 note cards and envelopes beautifully, that you can keep on your desk or you can give as a gift. So if you were in the Zoom watercolor class last month called Beautiful Watercolor Note Cards, you're not going to want to miss that, because this will show you a little more watercolor technique. I'm going to be talking about how to adjust the amount of water that you use to paint, which is something that a lot of people have questions about. So I'll go into that in more detail, and I'll show you another watercolor floral motif to decorate the outside of the box. Okay, so we're just about done with this. Now the purpose of this little box is to be able to give the rose on the inside added dimension. So it's going to raise it up an additional inch off of the floor of the box. I just want to make sure that that's stuck down well, getting into the corners. And there's our little box. Now, to help make it easier to open, I'm taking this little circle punch. Oh, this is the wrong one. Hang on. Here we go. And I'm just going to take out a little half moon on two sides. Just like that. Oh, I did it on the bottom of the box. All right, let's do that again. You make sure that you do it on the top of the box. Okay, there we go. So there's our little box. And I also have some die cuts that I also prepared ahead of time. And these include I used the fern from Forever Flourishing. And so those look like this. Very delicate, very beautiful. And I cut these out in Mossy Meadow. And I have a couple of different pieces. I also have the die set called Magnolia Memory. And I used the centers of the flowers, these kind of star-shaped stamens. And I also cut out these leaves with the cutouts. And I cut those out in old olive. The stamens are cut out in gold foil. I'll give you a close-up of that. All right, so these are my die-cut elements that I'm going to use to decorate the box. Let's put these aside. And the next thing I want to do is to begin building the base. So the idea here, I'm just going to slide these off to the side. The idea here is that this little box is going to be in the center here, and the rose is going to sort of envelop it. But before I do that, what I want to do is I want to add some of these ferns to the base. And I'm going to cut this one apart. So let's see. Can save those. And I'm just going to add a few drops of glue. Now this is definitely a project for an avid crafter. So this is a one-of-a-kind sort of an art project that you would do for somebody very special. There we go. I started this project last week where I showed you how I painted the watercolor to make my own decorative paper. And then on Saturday, for World Card Making Day, I added the box. So if you'd like to see those videos, you can go back and find them. They're also on my YouTube channel, which is called Dandelion Cottage, where there's a lot of videos, and I go into detail, more detail on how I do all these different things. Okay, so there is my base. I'm going to add one more in this corner over here. So I'm just going to trim these. And I'm saving all of these little extra pieces. These are going to be handy to have later. Okay. There we go. Just blotting up that excess glue. So that's what you'll see around the edge. Okay. And I just have the lid here. And I'm going to go back now to my watercolor paper, see if that's dry. Now it's slightly damp, and that's what I want, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this into strips. It's a little too big to fit in my paper trimmer, so I'm just going to cut this by hand. And these are very, very pale washes. It's just enough color to help give it a little bit of dimension and to tie it into the rest of the painting on the outside of the box. There we go. And I'm just going to trim this a little bit because I don't need this white area. Okay. Now what I have is I've got the balloon punch. Now this is a retired item, but it's still available on the clearance rack at a very discounted price. So you can get this now for only $10.80. So here is that host code again. Jot that down so that if you decide to get one of these punches, you'll be entered into the embellishment drawing. Okay, and if you go to dandelioncottagedesign.com, there's a page called Shop, and you can find it there. I will also, at the end of the video, list all of the different supplies that I used today and the tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab one of these pieces of paper, and I'm going to try to get all three of those tones. Okay, so what I end up with and this is very subtle, so I don't know if you'll be able to pick this up on camera, but it goes from pink to peachy to that cool tone on the end. And I'm just going to trim out a bunch of these. So I'll start with 5. Maybe I can get 6 in here. One more. There we go. Okay. Now, very often when you see a rose petal, it'll have a little kind of a indentation like that. All right, so I'm just going to give these a little bit of a trim. And no two are alike. So it's okay to vary them slightly. There we go. So now we have our bigger petals for the base. And I'm going to get out my ball burnishing set. Which is here. So I have a little foam pad. And I have this large ball burnisher. Okay, and that's about the size of an oversized pea. And then I've got this slightly smaller one, which is like a medium-sized pea. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my large one, I'm going to flip my petal over, and I'm just going to give that a little bit of a rub. And I'm pressing down fairly hard in these 2 lobes. And that's going to start to give it a little bit of a crinkled and a puffy appearance. And then on the front side, I'm just going to go sort of vertically along the center. So we start to get something that's shaped like that, and that's why I wanted the paper to be slightly damp, not wet, but just a little bit damp so that it would be a little more pliable so that I could do this. And I'm going to use the smaller one to go up through the center. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly give the rest of these a little bit of a shaping. And this paper, by the way, is the hot press 90-pound watercolor paper, so it's very strong and it can take a lot of abuse. So don't be afraid to give it a good strong rub. And if the petals get a little bit crinkly around the edge, that's even better. So don't worry if it's not, if you get those little kind of wrinkly bits, that's just going to make it look even more realistic. Now if you like, you can add some sparkle we have a nice paint in the back of the catalog, the shimmer paint, which can give them a nice little glow. I'm not going to use that today, but you can also use the Wink of Stella, which would be very pretty. Maybe just add a little bit to the edges, so there's a little bit of a glimmer. Okay. So here's the lid of my little box, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some glue dots. Let me unhook that. Sorry about that. I forgot to unhook my phone. Okay. So here are my glue dots. I wonder if people in other countries have robocalls, or if that's just an American phenomenon. They're so annoying. All right, so I'm just going to press this down in the center. So all I'm doing is I'm taking my petal and I'm putting the base of it, I don't know if you can see that well, but I'm just taking this little base and I'm pressing that on there, and this is why I like this balloon, hot air balloon punch. And what is the name of it? Hot air balloon punch. Because it has this extra little base that's perfect for making flowers. So I'm just going, so roses are typically based on 5 petals rather than 6. So for my base, I'm going to begin with 5. Whoops. Make sure I get the dot on there. Now, another thing that you can do is you can actually spend a lot more time coloring these petals with watercolors. I'm not going to have time in this video today to show you because we'd be here all day. But that's the beginning of our base. And I can just give that a good squeeze, or I could burnish it. So if I take my little block here, I can just make sure that those glue dots are adhering well. And I can give these a little pinch to help give them a little more volume. There we go. And now what I want to do is I want to take some of these leaves that I cut out, and I'm just going to tuck those in so that a little bit of them pokes out from underneath. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue towards the base. And I don't want them to stick out so much that they don't fit inside the box. So I want to be careful that they're enough to show, but not enough to get bent. There we go. And I can just take a quick look, make sure that that's in there well. you see? So it just makes it, so you want to be careful. And I think I will also take some of these leftover ferny leaves and just add some of those to vary the texture. There we go. So every little piece is useful for this. Okay? So now I'm just going to add a couple more layers, and this time I'm going to start to scrunch these petals up a little bit. So you can bend them any way you like. And I'm just going to stagger them. I'm going to punch out a couple more. Squeeze one more out of this piece. Another nice way to dress up these petals is if you have the gold paint, you can burnish the edges, or I mean sponge the edges of the petals with the gold to give them a little bit of a gilded edge. Now for these inner petals, not only am I going to scrunch them tighter, but I'm also going to cut them a little bit so that they're not quite as long, so that they form that nice center to my flower. Just two more. You can find this ball burnishing kit. What is it called? Paper sculpting kit on my page for shopping. You can just scroll down and find it and click on it, and it will bring you right to the page where you can purchase a set. They're really nice sets. They have a little scissor, I think there's some tweezers in there, the mat, and a nice selection of these burnishing tools. Okay, so now let's give these a little bit of a trim. So I'm just going to cut the base off about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to wave the outer edge a little bit. And I just want to make sure that these petals are adhering well, because sometimes the glue dots don't stick as well when they're damp. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little liquid glue, because I'm not feeling that these are adhering as well as I like. They're okay, but I just want to make sure that this does not come apart. So I'm just going to put a couple of dots. There, now we don't have to worry about that coming undone. That's why I really recommend using the multi-purpose liquid glue, because you don't have to worry that your work is going to come apart. It's also archival, it's pH neutral, so it's great to use on these finer projects. All right, so I'm going to give that a little scrunch. See. And just make sure that those are tucked in away from the edges. And I know this is a little bit longer video than usual, but that's why I have Marvelous Mondays, for these times when you want to make a project that's a little bit extra special, that takes a little more care, and I can share some of these more advanced techniques with you. There we go. Okay, now I want to show you, I have another punch here. This is called the Small Bloom Punch. And I can actually take my paper and I can go into some of these in-between places and get some more flower shapes out of them, but let me see if I can find a darker one. We'll use this one. Okay, so I'm looking for something that has a little more color to it, like this. Let me grab a couple from there. There we go. I'll take one from this edge. And there are other punches. For instance, we have this punch from the Perennial Essence Suite. I think this is still available. I didn't double check, but you can see, and I don't remember the exact name of it, but Perennial Essence was the bundle it was originally offered in. And the same thing, I can just pinch the tips to give it a little more shape. So I'll take 2 of these. I think we can use 3. There we go. And I'm just going to bend them up into the more of a flower shape. I'm going to hold that for a moment, make sure that that sticks down well. And then with these little small bloom punch flowers, I can take my ball burnisher, get the smaller one, and get those petals pointing up. I'll add 1 more of those. And I'm just kind of staggering the petals so that they don't overlap exactly. There we go. And then finally, for the center of my flower, I'm going to take a couple of these gold foil stamens. I'm going to bend those up as well, just like that. So that's the bigger one. Oops. Give that a little press. And then the tiny one inside there. And I'm giving this a kind of a firm press because of all the different layers. I want to make sure that everything is adhering nicely. Okay, we're done with all of this. I'm going to save these pieces. If I make a little card to go with this box, these pieces can be used to make the card. And coming back to my main box, put the lid on the bottom. I'm going to adhere this down to the inside of the box, but I just want you to be able to see, give you a side view here, how high that's standing. Now, if you want, you can also add some of these. For instance, I'll just show you. So if you were to take some of these small blooms like this, you can add those around the sides of the box with more leaves, just to really fill that out. But this video is already very long, and I don't want to take any more of your time. But I just want to show you what a beautiful surprise you can make for somebody with an explosion box that has a 3D flower on the inside. So that's the video for today. I hope this inspires you to do something really special. This is more of an art project. And then on the inside, you can put your special gift. So I hope you do something like that. I'd love to see what you do. Please share it. If you make a box that has something elaborate on the inside, I'd love to see your work. Stay well, stay creative, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget to go to the website, subscribe to Notes from Dandelion Cottage to find out about all of the upcoming classes I have for this month. See you next time.